Welcome to Future Role Model, a podcast that praises the unconventional and redefines what it means to be a role model and somebody who can talk good. I'm your host, Natasha Pearl Hansen, and today I'm so excited for who we have in the studio, my dear friend and fantastic comedian, Jay Washington.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here with you.
I'm always glad to hang out with you, man.
Yeah, like, you're one of those people that when I know I got a chance to hang out with out here, especially because it's knowing each other from back at the crib, it's like, yo, I got to hang out with Tasha no matter what. Because you're one of those people that's just cool to hang with. You real, you down to earth. And that's because of your genetics. But
yeah, at least a quarter of them, right?
Yeah, a quarter of your genetics. But nah, you're just a cool person that I always like to be around. You're a good vibe, a good energy, and a great person. So I'm always, if you ask me to do something, if I can do it, I'm there. And so you were there for me at one of my lowest points. So that's that's the true definition of friendship, and I always cherish that.
Making me blush, man, over here. We go way back. Jay and I started comedy in Chicago, and I remember the first time. Well, I remember we used to be on shows here and there together, but the first time we really got to know each other was when you came out to Los Angeles with XL.
Yep, we came to do
and
your
Patrick.
show.
Yep, you came to do my show at the Comedy Store. This was like back in the day. It was like probably 6 years ago. And then we all like kind of hung out that weekend, an extended weekend.
And that's when y'all called me a pigeon bitch because a pigeon tried to attack me on Venice Beach.
Dude, he really does not like pigeons.
I hit my cave from my head. You know what I'm saying? I didn't. Nope.
So yeah, I mean, we just go way back. We got like a good crew of Chicagoans on our side.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the praising, like the best things that ever happened to me in comedy was that I started in Chicago, but like didn't stick around too long to have to start over again, because
that makes sense.
Yeah, I had to start over. You have to start over again in LA pretty much no matter what.
Unless you were brought out here as a major name.
Exactly.
That's the only way you don't.
Yeah. And some people are doing really well in Chicago and then they come out. They kind of do it the smarter way, but I like kind of got like my little springboard in Chicago. Yeah. So I at least had like the ability to not suck on stage.
That was for me, because being born and raised there, I was like, you know what, this is the city I know. And I was able early in my career to hit the road. So I was still in Chicago, growing, honing my craft, but I was able to test it on the road. Yeah. And throughout the Midwest, which I started paying attention to, this is who you need to appease to an extent.
The center of the country is who your audience is.
Who is your audience is. Everybody thinks it's just LA and New York. No, it's the center of the country. Those are the ones where if your jokes can't relate with them, you have zero chance.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing. Before I came out here, and then it was like, for me coming out here was, man, I think I've done everything I can do out here. I'm done. I've done it all. I don't want to just. I've plateaued. I see the glass ceiling, and I need to go past that. So that's when the opportunities happen and things fell into place, and so that's how I ended up here. Yeah,
that was your time. Everybody's just got to hit their timing properly.
Yes.
Like mine happened to be just a terrible breakup, and so it was just like the perfect opportunity for me to just be like, fuck you, Chicago. But Chicago is still my favorite city. Like I will never stop bragging about the fact that it is and was one of the best places to live in my 20s.
I tell people all the time, especially when it comes to, like I said, being born and raised, anything that people like, yo, I got to do as a tourist. I'm like, man, I've been there at that. Like, what are you talking about? Like, we do that.
Yeah.
And then it's some things it's like, I'm not about to do that because I live here. Yeah, this is tourist shit. Y'all have fun with that.
I don't need to go lay under the bean and take selfies.
Yo, I swear to God, I know so many people who will come from LA and be like, yo, should I go to the bean? I'll be like, I'm the last person you should ask me about that.
You're going to see the bean and you're going to be like, well, that was trippy fucking mirror.
That's it.
And that's it.
That's all it is.
Like, there's so many cooler, like, and maybe it's just the way that I'm designed and when I travel, period. But like, even when I lived in Chicago, I didn't ever do anything touristy. Whenever I go to any city, I don't really do anything touristy. I try to just like meet people that know what's up and just like follow them to where they like to go.
I think the only time I did something, for lack of better words, touristy was I was in Denver. First time I went to Denver, and I was doing a comedy fest, and during the day I didn't have shit to do. And so I think I went to like downtown Denver or whatever it is, and they had this big art walk and whatnot. And so I checked that out because, so I was like, all right, I'm
That's art, though.
That's art.
That's like a sexy adult thing to do. Go check out some art and shit.
And so I did that. But other than that, I don't always do the touristy thing. I don't want to feel like that dude.
I know.
Like, yo, take me. I got to see this. And then just people something. I'm good.
I'm just not itinerary driven. Like, I just, like, even when, like, I go to New York pretty often. And every time I go to New York, I just, like, make it a point to, like, wake up at, like, 9, go do something active, and then just be out in the city because that's where your stories come from. Like being out in the city, not going to see a fucking building.
Sitting up in somebody's crib all day, telling us, man, so I was in Denver and I was watching Netflix at home at their house and I caught up on everything on X-Men the animated series.
Yeah,
like,
right?
So, I try not to do that. I try to, I try to chill when I go out of town and, I don't want to be that, like I said, I don't want to be that dude. It's like, take me to this. Take me to, like, yo, if you know something worth doing, I'll do it. Mm-hmm. Like I did a show in Houston and my boy flew me out and it was for his birthday show. And after the show, he was like, yo, we finna hang out. Which terrified the fuck out of me. Because he's
hanging out in Houston?
Hell, man, because he's black from the hood in Houston.
Oh.
And I've seen Jason's lyric. I've heard stories with the Ghetto Boys. I was like, nigga, I'm gonna die. And so we went to
shot by a cowboy.
Man, no, not a cowboy shot by a nigga. Like, we went to a party in the hood, and I was like, I have a career. I have a life. But then it was a dope-ass party because it felt like the crib. Yeah. It felt like back in Chicago when we party, but it was just that you hear those stories. But then it can be translated to the way people hear stories about Chicago and shit like that. Yeah. But I was super happy to, say, kick it and party. I was like, man, this is dope. But then I saw some cats about to get into it. I was like, yep, that's why it's time for me to leave. Yep. All right.
You got to know, you have to have those senses about you. And I'm thank God, like my family, my black side of the family is still living on the south side of Chicago, my mom's side of the family. Mm. And every time I used to go to my auntie's house down there, it was like 57th Place and Damon.
Hell yeah, down the street from where I went to high school. Yep. I already know about that.
And so when I was a kid, I would go there often enough where my cousins would give me little nuggets of wisdom of how to like behave in certain neighborhoods and not be a fool. Yeah. So it was really helpful for me when I finally grew up and was 22 and moved to Chicago to like at least have my wits about me of like how to act around certain neighborhoods. Like if you're not an idiot, people don't bother you.
I hate people who have that always that stigma, that impression that if you go to this neighborhood, they're going to automatically mess with you.
No. You're good. Yeah, and I've never felt unsafe in that area because of that. Because my family like just kind of, it was just, I don't know. It's just a neighborhood.
At the end of the day, that's all it is. At the end of the day,
it's a section of a city.
Yep, section of the city, like
But that's what friends would come to visit me in Chicago, and they'd be like, "How do we know if we're in the hood?" And I'm like,
You'll know.
You won't have to question.
People would kill me with that. They'd be like, how do I know in the hood? I'd be like, yo, where we're at right now, look around.
You'll feel it in your body.
Your soul will emanate and tell you are in trouble.
Yeah.
Like, I still know that. Like, even when I go, like I said, being from Chicago, I still always like, yo, am I in the hood? Because there's always that growing up where I grew up in the hood. Like, I grew up where it was going down.
Oh, yeah.
I grew up where the whole thing everybody talks about now real quick is how Chicago's quote unquote so bad and the murder numbers are high, quote unquote. Granted, you don't want murder numbers or anything, but then you're like, yo, 600 people at the end of the day with 5 million some people, you might want to stop.
Yeah. But that's a little high.
You're like, yo, it's 5 million some people. Like, unfortunately, it's a bad number to have in general, but like per capita, it's not even in the top 10.
Yeah.
But we always tell people, if you were around during the 90s, you can survive now. Because I was around during it, like I said, I'm an 80s, 90s baby. I was around when it was 1,000-something murders a year, when you couldn't even sit outside without them doing drive-bys. Like, we were trying to kick it as kids, and it was still going down worse than what it is now.
Yeah.
And so, people were like, yo, this is going to happen over here. And then I'm like, man, look, you're going to be straight. You'll be straight. Ain't shit like what it used to be.
Well, and it's funny because when I was a teenager, I used to complain to my mom about the fact that like they chose my dad's hometown in Wisconsin over like having me grow up in Chicago. And then as I got older, I was like, okay, my mom had a reason for doing that.
Oh, I got it.
Because like I knew kind of both sides of the spectrum, just at least from her stories growing up and my cousin's stories. And I was like, I'm Bat's blood. I should have grown up in Chicago. You kept me from like being who I should have been.
Hilarious.
But but then I grew up in like the coolest place ever with like a bunch of people working on farms, and they're all my best friends. So I can't complain. Like it was my path. Yeah. That was where I was supposed to be. So how did you like come up? Like what was your come up like? Or what was your upbringing? Were your parents really open to the fact that you wanted to potentially perform? Or
so for me, it's kind of weird because being a stand-up was literally never in the top 30 things I wanted to do in life. I grew up as a nerd. I was a nerd. I had GamePro magazine.
You still are a nerd, by the way.
That's why I say I grew up as one. And so I had GamePro magazines. It was all about comic books, cartoons, everything. And so my mom, because my dad passed when I was 5, right? A month before my brother was born. And so my mother was always very overprotective of us because, again, it's the 80s and 90s. Like, it's violent out here.
Right.
And so me being kept in the house a lot is what led to that. But as I got older, I was like almost one of those kids that was like, yo, I feel too sheltered. I need to break free. And people thought that because I was sheltered and was going to break free, I was going to be the super wild one. Wasn't the case. I did go out and party and kick it, but I didn't get like reckless.
Right.
So after I graduated high school, you know, me and my buddies, because they went to another high school down the street, we all just kicked it, started just drinking early and just partying. And it didn't ever get super bad. And then when I turned 20, one of my best friends who grew up across the alley from me introduced me to Windy City Pro Wrestling. Because we'd always been wrestling fans since we were kids. We would play wrestle in the front yard and everything, and my grandmother would always get pissed. She'd be like, can't y'all do that in somebody else's yard? And it was like, no, we got to do it here. And and so he introduced me there, and I was trying to go train there, and they were like, yeah, it's going to be $2,500. I was like, it's not going to be me training here. And so I left. And then he introduced me he had left like a month later and went to another spot that was $40 a month to learn and train. I started dancing.
Wow, that's a different price.
Yeah. And then so that, you know, opened my door, me still being a nerd, but now learning to become a professional wrestler. Mm-hmm. And was blessed with so many opportunities to work with so much great talent that people see on TV now, have become lifelong friends, travel the country doing that. And then about my 8th and 9th year in, I started working for a medical company, a chiropractic company as a medical biller, and we were getting free chiropractic care. I was like, you know what, let me go see. My neck been bugging me. Go in, get an x-ray. The chiropractor, she's a black one. She's like, hey, come here for a second. She'd hit me with come on over here real quick.
Come into the secret corner where no good news happens.
Yeah, she was like, come over here. And she pointed me to my x-ray, and she was like, what do you see? I was like, my neck look good, pretty good. It's in a line. It's good. She was like, your neck is supposed to bend like a backwards C. Yours is going straight up and down. She said, I don't know whatever it is you're doing, but you're going to need to stop or your vertebrae will fuse. And I was like, oh.
You're like, maybe it's the wrestling.
I was like, oh. Well, see, I was taking chair shots to the head with no problem. Like you seen wrestlers put their hands up. Because I feel like I have a hard head, so I would just take it straight on. And
oh my God, Jay.
Yeah, I was taking numerous
That is not a joke.
Numerous chair shots to the dome. I was going through tables, taking suplexes on concrete, all that stuff, jumping off the top rope outside of people out the ring. It was so much stuff. But she showed me, because it hadn't gotten super bad and irreversible, she taught me a lot of self-care, physical therapy techniques I can do to redevelop the curve in my neck. But then that made me realize, because my son was born by then, and I was like, yo, I want to be able to play with my kid. And so slowly but surely, the opportunity came up for me to do stand-up. I was discovered, quote unquote, on Facebook. There was a girl who had an entertainment company. She was like, you write a bunch of funny statuses. Have you ever thought about doing stand-up? I was like, not really. Wouldn't know how to get into it.
Right.
She was like, let's have a meeting. Let's talk. I think I can set you up. So we talked. She introduced me to do this first open mic at the Checkerboard in Hyde Park.
Yeah.
Michi was hosting. Michi Hall. And so I go the first time. She was like, yo, you just got to write some jokes. I was like, write 5 minutes worth of jokes. I'm like, I'm good. I can do that. Wrote 5 minutes worth, went to the Checkerboard, murdered. I had cats like...
Which, by the way, does not happen. Like, most people that write their first 5 minutes, it does not go
well at all. So I murdered. And I had Chicago legends who I'd seen on Comic View and Def Jam and all that were in the crowd. And I was like, yo, I'm getting love from them. So I was like, I think I can do this. Come back the next week, I wrote a whole new 5 and bombed like Hiroshima.
And then the reality check sinks in.
Reality check in. And so that, forced me to try to get better, because I was bombing for years, because I was cocky. I was bombing for years until I figured out what I wanted to talk about and what I wanted to be. And then, from doing stand-up, the door opened to get an agent out there, which at the time, I never cared about it. Everybody was like, yo, you got an agent. And I was like, so?
Right.
Because I didn't think.
Yeah, you weren't on that. You weren't on that hustle.
Right. My whole focus had been literally making it to WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. Literally, that was my goal. And so then I had an agent. He would send me to auditions. I wouldn't really care. I was like, whatever. Until I was just nonchalant one day, and I got a call back, and I was like, what? They want to see me again? And so I went, and I started getting more callbacks. And it was like, yo, you realize that's a great thing. They call you back. It's like your callback rating is super high. And then I booked my first commercial for a bank out in New York City. where they had like the Friday I had to go. They sent the car to pick me up, take me to the airport, fly me out, do a fitting, feed me, put me back in the car, send me back to the airport the same day just to pick me back up Monday so I can be out there for 3 days to shoot. I was like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah, you were like, I'm a fucking rock star.
Yeah, because they started giving me, because I got a per diem for the first time. I was like,
yeah, they're nice, right?
Like, what the fuck? They was like, yo, this is your money. I was like, huh? I'm like, yo, I got like $500 just for me, just to walk around with. I was like, nigga, what do I want to buy in New York? I started thinking about everything I saw in Home Alone 2. And so, but that started opening the door to my acting career. And I still was doing stand-up, getting better at that. And then...
How long ago was this, by the way? When did you do your first stand-up set?
I did my first stand-up set like 2008.
Okay.
2008.
Yeah, so about a decade.
About a decade ago. And so... that opened the door. Like I said, I was doing more stand-up shows. I was able to travel the country now. I'm able to feature for people, low-key starting their headline while still booking things. Then 2015, I booked Spike Lee's Chirac. And when I booked it, I was like, oh, I got a role in the movie. That's dope. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what my role was until I went for my fitting that day. And shouts out to Ruth E. Carter. I always bring her up because me and her work together. She's the costume designer for Black Panther. And I remember when she put me, we were at like 47th or something because Spike bought all our clothes in the hood. Mm-hmm. She put up a shirt against me and she was like, he's going to look good with Wes with this. I was like, Wes who? She was like, because there was this big board when I walked in and there were all these headshots on the wall. And I'm talking about, I see Angela Bassett, Samuel L. Jackson, John Cusack,
were they like storyboarding you guys?
No, they just had everybody's headshots up. They hadn't storyboarded anything. They had been done that, but the headshots for the costume were just all on the wall. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I'm seeing...
You're like, I'm in the real shit right now.
So when she was like, you don't know what you're doing, I was like, I got no clue. I just know I got a role. She was like, you're Wesley Snipes' right-hand man. I was like, okay. I had to suck all that up because, like, to hear that was like, wait, what? Like, in this movie... I'm his G Money. I was like, yo, I love New Jack City. I love Wesley Snipes. Like, I've been a diehard Snipes fan.
Oh yeah, who isn't?
And so that opened the door. You know, when I had booked that, when I knew that was about to come out, I was like, finally, I got a major credit to my name. At the time, my girlfriend and I, we discussed. I was like, yo, I think I can move to L.A. and do this. And she was like, yeah, I can go back home to Seattle, to Tacoma, and get myself together. You know, while you're doing that and bring us down. I was like, cool. So after that, moved out here. Had to, like you said, the realization you got to start over. Because I was like, man, I don't really want to start over. But then I had to go to all these open mics out here to get people to know me.
Yeah.
I was like...
Because that's what's tough. It's not even about like just your credits. It's about cred amongst your peers.
Yep. They have to... LA is run by the comics.
Yes. And this is a good thing because it's the only way to keep it in check a little bit.
A little bit.
Because otherwise, you know, there's like the LA versus the New York thing where like the New York mentality amongst comics is that they are like the real stand-up comics.
Right.
And the LA mentality is, or the mentality about LA is that it's a lot of famous people that happen to be able to do stand-up comedy. And that's where the two kind of like bump heads. Which some of that's true and some of that's not. I mean, they're more and more becoming like each other because there's so many people that work on both coasts now. But it's still, there is still that stigma and there is still that like, when I first started booking stuff, I would give the hosts like different credits of mine. And like lately I just don't because I'm like, just say whatever you want because either these people know me or they don't fucking know me.
Which I've learned.
And all I've got to do is impress them now. It doesn't matter what I've done. It doesn't matter who I've worked with. They have to like me now or it doesn't matter.
Hell, you can give it credit. You can give it credit that's so big. It put more pressure on you now.
It makes it worse.
It makes it worse because now they're like, oh, you better be hilarious.
Or hosts mess up all the time, you guys. Like, there was one time I had... When I left Chicago, the only decent credit that I had at the time was that I had opened for Guy Branum. And Guy Branum was a writer on Chelsea Lately.
Right.
So I had told a host on some dumb show, it was like a bar show, I was like, I just opened for Guy Branum. He's a writer on Chelsea Lately. But they brought me on stage saying she's a writer for Chelsea Lately. And you can't, like, I can't in my body accept a credit like that when it's not correct. So I had to open my set by being like, by the way, no. And also, here's my mediocre set for you guys. And so it was just so embarrassing.
I just did a show a couple of days ago where it was a pretty light crowd. The show was going relatively well. It was a lot of comics on the show, but the guy's a buddy of mine who's the host. He brought me up with just like, I didn't even have to tell him too much, but he was just bringing this resounding list of credits. I went up there and was like, hey, man, you're not going to put that much pressure on me in front of 14 people. Like, you're not going to force me to have to work up here for 14 people. I'm good. I said, I'm getting paid in drinks. Matter of fact, reduced price drinks.
Yep.
So, like, I'm good, which I don't even try to drink no more. But yeah, that can always.
And that's why we end up drinking, is because sometimes that's the only thing you get out of a deal.
Yes, it is.
Some nights I'm like, I'm not going to drink. And then they'll be like, all you have is 2 drink tickets. And I'm like, I'm going to fucking drink.
I'm going to fucking drink.
I'm going to drink.
I'm going.
I'm having my beer. I always convince myself beer is kombucha.
Hilarious.
So you have had some definite struggles since being out in Los Angeles.
Yes.
And I know this because we've talked about a lot of things over the last couple of years. So let's get into that, because it's cathartic to be able to say what you've been through.
One of the first issues I ran into was I never thought I would have that horrible roommate situation. I moved out here, and my original living plans, they fell through. So I had to hurry up and find a roommate, found one off Craigslist. And it was 2 people sharing a 1-bedroom apartment. I had the bedroom part. He had the front part with no furniture in it. But he was just really neurotic and everything. And it was like, yo, I got to go. Had to rush up out there and trying to find somewhere else. I moved it to another spot where it was 4 people in a 1-bedroom.
Oh, my God.
But I was like, yo, this is only going to be temporary. This is going to be cool. I can push through it.
Yeah.
The place had fleas and bed bugs.
No, both?
Yeah, both.
Oh,
and
that's
so,
not okay.
Because it had had a cat and all the shit, and it was just crazy. The dude who was renting the apartment wasn't paying the rent for like 4 months.
So he was just taking your money?
He was just taking everybody's money, just stacking it up. He wasn't paying rent. And then all of a sudden one day he popped up and moved to Vegas. So I had to move out.
Oh, so he was just saving up to screw everybody over. It's actually a very smart way to con somebody.
And before that happened to me, while I was staying there during that little 1-2 month period, I had to go back to Chicago to film a movie for a month. So I had all my stuff that was still there. I come back home, half my clothes are gone and shit of mine is gone. And I was like, yo, what happened? Oh, well, I left somebody there in charge. What the fuck you think this is? Grammar school? And so I had lost stuff like that. And then I was like, yo, I just got to get out of here. Went to stay with a former friend. Her and her boyfriend, they were moving out their house soon and everything was packed up. So I just slept on a pallet on the floor in the front, and then that fell through. And then I didn't have a place for a while. So for like a couple of weeks, I slept in my car. Until a friend of mine hooked me up, was like, yo, I'm going to put you in this hotel for a minute. And I was like, cool. And
LA is hard enough as it is, by the way. Like, your first year here is never easy, even if you have it, quote unquote, easy.
Yeah.
But I remember when I first moved out here and kind of was in a similar situation and just couldn't afford anything. Like, I just really couldn't afford anything. Mm-hmm. So my options were very limited.
Very limited.
It's really scary. Like, it feels very lonely here when you're in that situation. You don't know where money's going to come from.
And I have too much pride to want to ask for help.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yep.
People are like, oh, well, pride this, that. I was like, you don't get it. It's somebody who knew he could hold his own, because living in Los Angeles is the first time I've ever lived anywhere outside of Chicago.
Mm-hmm. So
literally, I'm like, I just got to figure it out. I know people who are here, but I can't rely on them per se.
Right.
And so I told a buddy of mine, and he heard the situation. He was like, don't worry, I'm going to take care of it. And so that happened for a minute. And then I stayed with a buddy of mine, him and his wife. And then I moved to staying with another buddy because I was trying to find a place. And I was booking stuff, but it wasn't enough to carry over. And then finally, my buddy was like, yo, I'm going to put you up in these rooms so we can figure something out, because I'm trying to find a new place, too, so we can get it together. During that whole process, I had a situation with my car where it wasn't registered. I had another former friend who I knew out here, was associate form back in Chicago, had gave me a license plate. They said, you can have plates dual registered to vehicles out here. I was like, yo, I don't know how California law works, whatever. I just need to be able to move. Found out the plates were stolen. So
I remember when that whole thing went down.
So when my car wasn't registered, my car was impounded with all my stuff inside. So I lost everything I had except 2 bags of clothes and my laptop and stuff. And so I lost my kids' pictures. personal stuff, memory stuff that I had, memorabilia, all that. My wrestling gear from 15 years worth of wrestling was gone. And so I was just like, I broke down. I almost, I was like, man, okay, eventually if I can save up some money, they said by this court date, I can get my car out. Fast forward, it had been 40-something days. I called the place. It was like, oh, we sold the car off already. I was like, what? Y'all told me I had to do it by the court date. They was like, no, you only got 30 days. I was like, nobody ever told me this. So I lost all of my stuff. And then I just had a complete mental breakdown. And then I had to end up staying because like the guy who was helping with my rooms, he's like, I can't do it right now. I don't have the money. Somebody stole money on my account. And I was like, what, huh? Like, I didn't know what to do. So I got a payday loan real fast and grabbed me a room for the weekend and called a friend I'd met out here. And her and I, we just were cool. And she was like, you can crash on the couch for a while. And then so I'd been helping out around the house and stuff. And she was like, well, what's the plans for the future? I was like, well, you got the open room and you said you were going to rent it. I was like, yo, if you wouldn't mind, I would love to rent it out and blah, blah, blah. And so she was like, okay, cool. And so that's where I am currently. But on top of that, went through the breakup with my daughter's mom who moved to Tacoma. And that was happening while I was homeless in my car. That was the last thing I had to hold on to. And that started driving me further down the hole of depression. I became suicidal out here 2-3 times. It wasn't until I almost jumped out of a 7th floor hotel window that I decided to finally go see somebody and get some help about that.
Yeah.
Because I'd been battling my depression on my own.
And people are really afraid to get help. And people are really afraid to be honest about what they're going through in this city, because this city does weird things to you where it puts like pressure where you feel like you're supposed to be successful right away, especially if you already were successful in another city.
Where you were, yes, it does.
And, you have people that watch your journey and that say, oh, we're so proud of you. You're killing it in LA. And you feel like you have to live up to that. And people don't really know what it actually fucking takes, like how much you have to hustle, even if you're still like making it. Like
people forget that. People don't see that. Like especially people who are like people who move here know it, but people who in their hometowns, when you go back to your hometown to visit or whatever, everybody's like, oh, look at Hollywood, you doing?
Everybody thinks you're rich.
Oh my God.
And you kind of are. Like when I go back to Wisconsin, I'm like, okay, I can afford a lot of things here because it is cheap.
Like I go back to Chicago, I'm like, all right, if I go to a 4 a.m. bar, I know I'm gonna kick it. I know I can get drunk and only spend like $35.
I know, exactly.
So then that happened. I finally started getting help with that. And then fast forward to this past February, first week of February, I had a sore throat out of nowhere on a Thursday, week of Super Bowl. Friday, I had to go do something early in the day, came home, took a nap, woke up, I was freezing. And I had to cancel the spot I had at the Laugh Factory, go to the hospital. They say, oh, you got pharyngitis. Here's some prednisone. I go get it filled. I get it filled at their pharmacy in the hospital, take it the next day. My shoulder and knee, the inflammation in those were gone, but my throat was still bugging me. So, excuse me. And so the next day I go back, I'm like, yo, my throat's still worse and this ain't working. They're like, oh, you have pharyngitis and laryngitis. Here's a codeine cough syrup. Here's a Tussin cough syrup with codeine. And I literally looked at the doctor and was like, do you think I'm a fucking rapper? Like, because that's the only reason you would give me this.
Sizz up.
Right. And so I was too tired and too weak to even do something. So Super Bowl Sunday, I was supposed to go to a couple people's cribs, couldn't go. I ordered a pizza and wings because I was like, I'm not going to leave. I couldn't even eat the wings, and then I knew it was bad because I couldn't swallow water.
Yep. And
my voice sounded like a wet drive-through speaker.
Yes.
And so Sunday I was exhausted. Monday I finally struggled, got myself up, went to go fill my prescription to take the cough syrup. Took the cough syrup, my entire neck and throat swelled up. Couldn't barely breathe, couldn't barely swallow, but I could keep spitting up phlegm all day, every day. That Monday night, I remember somebody saying to me, take a teaspoon of honey. Because if you have a sore throat, take a teaspoon of honey.
Yeah.
Didn't know I almost killed myself and suffocated on a teaspoon of honey because my throat and epiglottis and windpipe, all those were completely swollen.
And then you get stuck. Yeah.
It's viscous. And so Tuesday morning, 5 a.m., I go back to the hospital again. I'm crying. I'm like, man, I can't breathe. The male nurse tells me, if you can talk, you can breathe. I mustered up all the energy in my body at that moment to say, bitch, I know the logistics. I said, but it feels like I can't breathe. And so one of the other nurses realized how swollen my throat was. They gave me an x-ray. They told me, we think your epiglottis is swollen. And I was like, that's my windpipe. And so the ear, nose, and throat doctor, she comes in, takes the scope through my nose because they couldn't go through my throat. She says, we're going to have to intubate you. And she's like, because your airway's about to close. And so she was like, we're going to do it with anesthesia. I was like, cool. Take me in the operating room. She scopes again, and then they start putting a tube in. I was like, you said you were going to use anesthesia. She was like, we can't. I said, why not? Because if we put you under, you're not going to make it. That's how bad my airway was almost at close.
Yeah.
Because if it closes, it closes. That's it.
Yeah.
And so they were like, we can't without, we can't. We have to do this while you're awake. They put me under. Fast forward, I wake up later. I don't know when I woke up. All of a sudden, I didn't have a tube in my nose or my mouth. I had something in my neck, and I couldn't talk. But I'm strapped down to the bed. So my natural reaction is to try to break myself out this bed because I know I can.
Mm-hmm.
They had to run in and stop me. And I was like, I'm trying to mouth the words, what happened to me? Why is this? And they was like, give me a pen and paper, and I wrote it down. They said, Mr. Washington, you had an abscess in your throat that ruptured. You had pus and air all in your neck. We had to give you an emergency tracheostomy to keep you alive. And so that's when I had the tube in my throat.
Yep.
And they were like, the reason you're strapped down is because even while you were unconscious and sedated, you were trying to take the tube out. So my body went into fight or flight without me even knowing it. My body was like, yo, this ain't right. And so that was like, they were like, had you not come in the hospital earlier the day you came in, you would have died. First of all, I was like, what do you mean the day I came in? They was like, it's now Wednesday. I had been out almost 24 whole hours because my blood pressure shot up through the roof because my body was nervous.
Yeah.
And so
it's crazy like that so many people overlook this type of situation.
They completely do, and it made it, almost losing my life put a lot of things into perspective for me. Definitely the fact of my kids, because I have a 14-year-old and a 4-year-old. And my dad passed when I was 5, going on 5, 4.5 going on 5. And my dad passed of a diabetic heart attack. But I always said, my dad was 29, and I always said, I want to make sure I'm there for my kids growing up, no matter what. And that was the moment I was like, I'm almost out of here. And so in the hospital, I was real depressed and everything. Luckily, I had great friends like yourself and others who came to saw me to keep my spirits up. And I lost 41 pounds in the hospital. I hated how I looked then. Because my body, I was just powerlifting, lifting heavy.
I remember all you wanted to do was shave your head. It was so fucking funny.
Yo,
I came and sat with him, and he was, writing. He was either texting or like writing on the whiteboard, and he was just like, "I need to shave my head."
I was like, I just need to shave my head. That's because like I'm bald, and it's by choice. Like I'm not bald by nature. So when I grow a full head of hair out, people are like, "Oh, you can grow hair." I'm like, "Yes," but I just choose to have my hair.
The two things Jay was concerned about while he was on his deathbed were, I need to work.
Yep.
I need to be working. Why am I stuck in the hospital? And in that I just kept saying, like, Jay, you just need to like get better first, then deal with work. I
said, I could be forgotten about just like that.
Yeah, I know. You were so like, but that's a fear that a lot of us have when we have to take downtime, or we have to go away for something, or like we have to deal with family shit. Like you're scared to like step away from the scene for a bit because you're like, oh, somebody else is going to come in and take my
Literally,
spot.
I swear to God, I was like, because I had started making headway working now, doing stand-up, doing different TV and film projects, now working on...
You're regularly working with Collider. You're regularly working with... Yeah,
Collider and Screen Junkies and all these things. I'm making this noise, and all of a sudden I'm like, this all can be put at a screeching halt. Because it was one doctor who came in who wasn't the original doctor. He was like, you're going to probably have to have that in for a couple of months. And I remember writing on the whiteboard to him, no, the fuck I'm not. He was like, what did you say? And I pointed right back to it again. And he was like, well, you don't understand the severity of what happened. You almost died. I said, what you don't understand is one way or another, this thing is coming out my throat. And that terrified him because he saw how serious I was, because I was. I was like, one way or another, I'm pulling all this shit out my neck. So y'all need to figure out what's going on. He was like, you have a great day. And my blood pressure shot up so much, the nurses came in to check on me because they was like, what happened? I was like, he just pissed me off. Also,
you're writing it on a whiteboard.
Yeah.
And you write piss really tall and big.
Also, I have to thank you and a bunch of other people who came in for helping me get special privileges in the hospital. Because all of you pretty motherfuckers came in and you kept coming to see me in just rotation. And then the nurses and them started trying to wonder, who is he?
And then you were the famous guy in the hospital.
I was the famous guy on the floor.
It was fucking awesome.
Because Jen Sturger, shouts out to Jen, her and Cody, her husband, came through and they told him who I was. It's like, well, he's a comedian actor. He does this, then the third. They went and Googled me and started seeing YouTube and all this other stuff about me. Then I became the famous dude on the floor.
Yeah.
Because I remember one nurse who wasn't even my nurse came in. She was like, "Oh, I wanted to work with the celebrity." I was like, "Well, I was getting all the juices and Jello, all I wanted, baby."
I know. They were like treating you like a king.
Yes, they were.
It was nice. When I came in, I was like, okay, he's in good hands. Cool. I just had to make sure.
Yeah.
And I think I had told you this, but when I was in college, when I was 18, I had an abscess in my throat. And the same thing happened where I went to the hospital. I went to the hospital for like 3.5 weeks in a row, and they kept trying to treat me with other stuff. And then finally my friend Carly, who I grew up with, and she was in college with me, she like drugged me to the hospital one day because I couldn't speak at all.
Yep.
Like I couldn't swallow or talk. And she was like, somebody do something. And the right person looked in my throat, and it didn't rupture. Thank
See, they
God.
caught it before, yeah.
They caught it before it ruptured, but they drained it right away, and I could eat spaghetti immediately. And then the next week they took my tonsils out.
Yep.
So like it saved me that she was being like, no, they're gonna do something.
Because I still believe to this moment, the prednisone they gave me the very first night fed it and made it grow worse, because prednisone is a steroid.
Steroid, yeah.
So I really believe the prednisone they gave me the first time, it made everything worse. Like, it would have still been an abscess.
Yeah.
But it's what made everything worse, because it made it inflame so much to the point where it just popped.
Yeah. And it's horrible to go through. It's like the most, when I was recovering from it, I had a hammock in my dorm room, and I just like laid in my hammock and just sucked on popsicles, and like I was like, this is fucking awful. And Sarah Silverman talks about it in her special. She had the same thing happen, a similar thing.
Yeah.
But like, people that use their voice a lot, beware. If you have a sore throat and it doesn't go away, like something's wrong.
Also, not only did I have to have the tracheostomy, they had to cut into my lymph nodes on both sides of my neck. So I had 2 big giant scars. I told them, "Oh, y'all gave me gills." Cool. And so they had to cut into there to go deep to drain my throat out, because they had to pump me full of antibiotics, because I almost went septic, which people who don't know, if you go septic, that is the worst thing that can happen in your life. Mm-hmm. You know, inside of your body.
Yeah, it's really hard to recover from, isn't it? It's
really hard to recover from sepsis. So, sepsis, yes.
Yeah, sepsis.
So that was, that whole situation made me reevaluate a lot of stuff in life. And yes, for those listening, I got a great 10 minutes out of it. But
that's what we do. We just garner material out of these shitty points.
Everybody as a comic was like, "Oh, you going to have some great material out this." And at the time, I was like, I ain't thinking about no motherfucking material right now. But, I was documenting what was going on with me and everything. But yeah, it was terrifying.
Yeah.
And I thank God every day that I recovered fully. And like, I could start talking after they took the tube out. I started talking within 4 hours. Within 6, I was able to talk normally. Within less than a week, I was back on air on one of the stations working. Mm-hmm. And they were like, "How are you here?"
You were like, "Because I'm not going anywhere, bitches."
I tell people I tell people this all the time, and they don't believe me. They think it's a joke. I say, I heal quickly. I heal quick. And so I was telling my regular surgeon who did the procedure on me, I was like, I heal quick. So she didn't believe me. She was like, whatever. She's like, it takes me about 2 months to heal. Had to go see her 48 hours later. 48 hours. I came in. She looked at my throat, the hole. She was like, "You weren't lying. Your hole is already closing." I was like, "I told you." She was like, "You're talking clear." I said, "Yeah, I heal quick." She couldn't believe it.
You and my uncle, dude, you guys need to meet. You guys will make like some superpower blood or something. My uncle, he's like in his 50s, and that man he's survived blowing himself up. He has no scars either. Like he was a complete burn victim. He got hit by a deer on his momotorcycle. Or I guess he hit the deer. The deer didn't run into him.
Yeah, because I was like, yo, what type of badass Bambi was that? Like, come here, bitch. Like,
this guy looks like he needs a fucked up weekend. Yeah, and like shit, like he's fallen off like 4 stories of like just it's crazy shit that he survived. And he's a smoker and a drink, and all this stuff. And the doctor had looked at his lungs like recently. He had gotten a checkup, and the doctor was like, "Do you swim?" And he was like, "No." And he was like, "Yeah, you have the lungs of an Olympic swimmer. Like you have crazy, like amazing lungs." And they were just basically deemed my uncle like a superhuman. And I was like, well, we could have told you that like 10 years ago when he survived 80 accidents.
Also, not only, and that was another thing, when I was in the hospital, it wasn't just because I was trying to pull my, it was because I was trying to pull my tube out my throat. But the thing was, 4 different doctors tried to hold me down, 2 on each arms, and I kept throwing them off even while I was unconscious.
Yeah.
These were grown men and women, and they were like, how is this happening?
This is from reading. This is what happens when you grow up reading comic book guides. You actually become a superhero. And then you become a wrestler, and then you become a superhero comedian. And that's how life happens.
That's how life works.
So, I mean, there had to have been times in your past where, because I mean, you're doing really well now, and you're only going to be doing better and better. I mean, that's the whole point, is that I don't think people in this field or in entertainment period ever really think they're at the top of their game. There's so many people that are successful that are like, nah, but I haven't done this yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I know I'm nowhere near the top.
It's like being competitive against, I'm very competitive against myself.
Absolutely.
Not against my friends, not against other comics. I don't compare myself, but against what I have done already. I'm like, well, I can't go back and do that. So I got to do something better. And like, that's the constant challenge that we put ourselves through. And so, I mean, was there a time that you are like, that you look back on now where you're like, God, I never would have thought I would be a role model to somebody?
Working on these networks, on these various internet networks with Collider, Screen Junkies, and, you know, being a presence on YouTube now, I would go to these cons and I would have black men stop me. First off, they'd be in awe to meet me. And I'm like, yo, I'm just an average dude. Like, you ain't got to be like that. I'm a regular dude. You can talk to me. But they would be like, the first thing they would say was, thank you. And I would never understand. They were like, thank you. And I was like, what do you mean? They were like, thank you for being that voice. Thank you for being you on these networks. Thank you for showing that it can be done. You've inspired me to do this. You make me want to go further. And I was like, you're welcome, but thank you for saying that, because I never thought I'd be that person. I have a 14-year-old son who, to him, I'm just dad.
Right.
No matter what I do, I was on commercials where his mama, my ex-wife had to see, and my ex-wife was like, ugh, here he go again. But my son was like, that's his dad. This is my daddy. And to him, as long as I'm his father, it's cool. But to the world, and I'm a role model with him because he's like, yo, you doing dope. He's like, you do great things. He wanted to do a YouTube channel. I was like, well, if you want to do it, as long as you're putting out good stuff, I'll help you promote it. I'll help you blast it, anything.
Yeah, that's cool.
And you know, to him, he's just like, yo, I want to do this, I want to do that. And he's like, because I know you're smart and I want to be smart like that. And I'm like, you are already smart and I want you to be smarter than me. But to have random strangers who walk up to me at these Comic-Cons, people who've seen me on the street, which first of all, see me in the street in LA and somebody acknowledges me is the weirdest thing, because I don't feel like I'm that type of person. I'm not that big of a celebrity. And so people are like, yo, you inspire me, what you do. I get so many messages on Twitter, in my DMs a lot, from dudes who are just like, yo, I just wanted to say thank you and how much you're an inspiration to me. And that motivates me just as much as being a great father to my children. Like, because I never thought I'd be that person.
Yeah.
I didn't get into this whole talking about movies and TV and my nerddom to be a role model. I didn't get into it for that, but I accepted it.
Well, because it was honest to you.
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of people make their mistake in when they first move to LA or they first get into entertainment, is they try to figure out what people want. And the further you get and the more comfortable you get with yourself, you realize people just want you to be you.
And they'll relate off that.
Yep. And that's why it's fun to be like messy and have had gone through shit, because it's real. Like, people don't live perfect lives.
And a lot of people have told me, they're like, yo, the fact that you're so open with what you've been through and what you do and what's happened to you is surreal. Like, most people would never tell it. I said, first of all, you can thank my therapist because that has allowed me to break that stigma. And I even just had to, because May is Mental Health Awareness Month, I had to record a video for my channel, and I recorded a video talking about, for black men primarily, it's okay to talk about you being sad. It's okay that you're not okay. It's okay if you struggle with anxiety, if you struggle with severe depression, bipolar syndrome, things like that. It's okay to seek help. It's okay to have somebody bring you back and help you understand where things might have went wrong, or what's being thought about wrong or not looked at from another situation, even if it's not wrong. It's okay to deal with that. And I talked about my struggles with it and my battles with depression, my battles with anxiety. Like, I take every night, in order for me to sleep, I have to take 2 pills to go to sleep. I can't sleep without them.
Yeah.
I will literally be up all night.
And I know a lot of people like that because like creative brains, especially when you're trying to like make it too,
they stay working.
Your brain does not shut off. Mine doesn't shut off at night either. And I've had to try and go through a lot of different tactics and take like melatonin pills and stuff because my brain just doesn't stop.
Yeah. So like I got these pills, they're called Trazodone, and I was taking one at first and it was working for a while. It would knock me out because of course my body was new to it. And then I told my therapist like, yo, this isn't even keeping me sleep all night anymore. He was like, you can take 2. He's like, there's a higher dosage, but you can go into it. I won't tell you what that is. But he's like, you can take 2 of them now and see how that works. And now I had to take 2 of those every night if I want to go to sleep, which is so crazy because I used to think, oh, I could just lie down when I want to and probably let my brain just decompress and go to sleep. But, you know, having to take those. And I talked about that. Like, you can suffer from severe anxiety where you don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know where your next paycheck is going to come from. You don't know if you're being the right role model to who you need to be the right role model to. You know, I worry sometimes, am I being the best father I can be? It's hard being a father who's away from their kids. That's why I just started a podcast called A Dad Apart. I just put the first episode up. It's on my YouTube channel.
Hell yeah.
It talks about there are fathers who are away from their kids for a variety of reasons. It may not be a negative reason, but career might have forced them to move. There are army dads who always have to be away from their family. You know, I know a lot of people who are here who are fathers who have to be away from their kid because they have jobs here. And, you know, that's one of my struggles. Like, it's hard being a father to a teenage son in Indianapolis, a toddler that is with special needs in Tacoma. And I'm in Los Angeles at the same time. I could, no matter even if I was still in Chicago, I still am a distance away from
And travel is expensive. It
is extremely expensive.
And like, if you have to like arrange your travel as a comic, you've got to try and book work near a place, and then you're working.
Make sure it's profitable work.
Yeah, it's a whole fucking thing.
So yeah, that's why I started that, to talk about those things I deal with, and I talked about how my mental health issues I was dealing with were affecting that, because I've always felt like, am I being the best father I can be? Am I doing enough for them to know that their father loves them and he's never negating them? He's doing this so that they may have and understand working hard, you know, it'll pay off. So I did that video to let men know, primarily black men, because unless a celebrity
there's
talks
a stigma.
about, yeah, because unless a celebrity talk, like, that is the craziest part. Like, all of a sudden everyone's like, man, black men can talk about mental health. No, because certain black men came out who were celebrities who had that platform. Yeah, but still, no, we should have all been able to talk about it. We should have all been able to talk about, look, I hurt. Yeah, it's granted there's this whole thing of you're weak, you soft, but sometimes you have to be weak to become stronger.
Yeah.
You know, iron isn't always iron. It has to be heated up and melted to its rawest form where it's malleable. Then it becomes, when it's hardened, then it's strong. Then it's damn near unbreakable.
Well, and like, even people that are like, because I consider myself a very positive person. Like, I love life, and I love people, and I love like experience. And even me, ever since I started comedy in Chicago, almost like clockwork, every couple of weeks, I'll just hit a day or two that are really fucking hard.
Yes.
Where I just want to like quit everything, because that's why like travel is so freeing, and why I try to do it as often as I can, because it's a mental break a little bit from this. Like, it's just a lot being here, trying to just do anything. It's a lot of work.
There's an encompassing feeling you have, especially being in the midst of the entertainment capital of the world, working in entertainment, whether you're a comedian, an actor, a writer, producer, content creator, whatever the case, you're in it, and you can feel that on you. And you have to get away from that. For your mental well-being.
You have to balance, and it takes a lot of work to find how you balance well as a person.
Yeah, because I'll go home sometimes for a week, a couple of days, just to get away. Whether it be a couple of days to get away, I just went to Tacoma to hang out with my daughter, but also it was good just to be away.
Yep.
And not have just constantly 24/7 on my mind. I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to make this happen. And
sometimes those breaks, like whenever I take breaks and allow myself to just kind of be with people and not be like, on social media, or be accessible on a phone, or be answering all my emails every time they come in. Like, when I take breaks like that, that's when I'm the most creative. So that's why I try to say yes to every opportunity I get to go fucking anywhere.
I'm going to tell you what was the funniest thing about that. What made me, I never used to be diehard connected to my phone. Never did. until one thing happened and it changed me mentally, and it literally has been embedded in me. My phone was acting stupid, and I missed an email about a college gig for $1,200.
Ugh.
And I needed that money. And I was supposed to respond back by freaking noon. It was like 1:30 when I finally saw it. And I said, my phone will stay on, it'll stay charged, all this stuff, because it was like, I'm gonna miss out. And so, yeah, I understand the whole having to disconnect from it, because like I'm waiting, hopefully, for a phone call about something major.
Yep.
As of right now. So, like, normally I will have my phone turned face up. I have to turn it face down, so I'm not consistently looking at it, because I have to disconnect myself, like you said. If not, I'll go crazy.
One of this sounds so simple and stupid, but like every day I either do Muay Thai or do yoga at some point. And when I go, both of my gyms are really close to where I live. So I leave all my shit at home and I walk to whichever gym I'm going to without any belongings. And ever since I started doing that, which was probably about a year ago, it's maybe like an hour and a half, 2 hours that I don't have my phone around me. It's not going to kill me.
Nope.
You know, and waiting 2 hours to answer an email isn't going to lose you a big gig generally. I've gotten to know everybody in my neighborhood. Because like I actually talk, like there was one day I was walking down the street to go to yoga and there was this guy, like he was coming towards me. He's got dreads. He looks really cool. He's like singing to himself. Like as he gets closer, I hear him go, hey. And I was like, oh, he's jamming to Justin Timberlake. So as I get closer, I start singing the song at the right part that he was at. And he takes his headphone off and looks at me like he thought I was saying something. And as he realizes I'm singing with him, we start singing together for like, it was maybe like 20 seconds. And then we laughed and we high-fived and we walked our separate ways. And it was just like a good human moment.
Yes.
And I was like, you know, when you don't have your fucking phone and you're just kind of out in the world, like people are pretty great to each other. When it doesn't involve cars or phones, like people in general are pretty great.
Good. Yeah, it's those things I like to have. That's why, you know, like I go to the gym and everybody's like, oh, but you take gym selfies. I said, those first of all are for me. Those are for me. Because especially
progress, guys.
Literally, because those are like for me, because especially after coming out of the hospital, losing all the weight I lost, and then consistently losing because I had to change my diet because my stomach shrunk. I started noticing how different I was looking and better I was
feeling.
And feeling. And so I documented not just for me. People see it and they're like, again, people have been hitting me up. You've become an inspiration to me for that, because to show that you can stay diligent to that and not change. And so it's just, you know, but also there are times I'm like, I don't need my phone. I don't need it. You can stay. Like you say, an hour, 2 hours, not going to kill me.
Just a couple hours of a break.
Will not kill me.
Just away. You know, you can have your pictures and shit and upload them later. Like it's not, social media is not going anywhere. But one of the funniest things somebody said at a party to me a couple weekends ago, it was this chick that works in PR and we were pretty drunk. And she was like, you know, there should be a terrorist organization that just takes out Instagram. Like everybody would freak the fuck out.
Yes,
and I was like, that's a funny idea.
That is the truth. Like, could you imagine, especially all those Instagram models?
You would be out of work. Like, what you gonna do?
You can't put,
you have to be a person again out in the world?
Because you can't put, I was an Instagram model on a resume. I don't know where that works in the real world.
It's a resume with just like an ink blot of your butt print. Like, this is what it used to look like.
People knew about it. 100,000 people.
Everybody cared.
You know.
But yeah, I mean, that's why, like, you know, when Instagram stories started becoming a thing, it was like probably, you know, about a year and a half ago that those kind of got introduced. And it was right before I was home for Christmas in Wisconsin for 2 weeks. And when I'm home for Christmas, like, you know, the industry is kind of shut down. I can actually kind of like enjoy my time.
Yeah.
And I was videoing myself waking up every morning hungover with my friends. And I was like, this is what Instagram should be. Like, I look terrible and I'm puffy and I feel amazing. I had such a good time with like the best people in the world.
Right.
Like,
I enjoyed every single moment.
This is what life is. And this is what life looks like the next day. So, I mean, that's what's so nice about the fact that we do what we do and we have a voice to be able to be imperfect, and that's okay. Like,
yeah.
I've been, I'm engaged. I'm about to hit my 1 year of being engaged.
Which, by the way, tell Justin I've been meaning to hit him back up. I need these headshots. I got a bottle of whatever he wants to drink.
Yes.
Which you have a dope fiance, and I'm very happy for you.
We're building his headshot studio in the apartment this weekend, actually. So I'm getting my construction on.
Well, when y'all get done, if you need another test subject beside you and some cheese, let me know. Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, and like that's been a whole interesting thing because we've been together for 7 years and we were supposed to get married this July. And like last month, I think it was last month that we both just decided we needed to push it another year because I was like, I'm not ready. And I've been talking about how like imperfect being engaged, because people think that when you get engaged, like, oh, we're going to get married, it's going to be perfect, we're going to have a dream come true. And like as soon as we got engaged, like all sorts of shit hit the fan, and it just wasn't like it's just a lot. Like being in a relationship with somebody long term is fucking hard.
And then when you change, because a long-term relationship is one thing, but then when you decide to evolve that to the next step of a lifetime commitment, there's a lot of things a person has to reevaluate with themselves.
It's scary
because you have to look at yourself like, am I somebody that somebody's going to want to wake up to every single day for the rest of their life?
And am I doing the best for me right now? Can I be that person for somebody else if I don't feel like I'm there yet?
Yeah.
And so that's the whole thing too, is, you know, and then you're a 33-year-old woman and you're like, my womb is going to dry up. Do I want kids soon? Like, it's just this whole fucking mental thing that you go through. But the more I've opened up about that on stage, like every show, some girl will come up after the show and be like, oh, I hated being engaged, or I hated the whole process, or like, you know, just very interesting. And it has nothing to do with your partner. It doesn't have anything to do with like the person and the fact that you're, but yeah, I mean, I think people struggle with things that even seem good on the outside.
You want to hear a story? I don't know if I told you. I was engaged to my daughter's mom. I fucked that up royally.
I'm right.
I ended up cheating while she was pregnant because I met a girl who was doing my headshots. Literally, she was just doing headshots. Then she had connections with marketing and managing with people in the industry for real. And so I was like, yo, if I play this right, this will just be something to boost my career. And I got entangled into it. Because it sounds so stupid every time I tell people. They're like, how? I'm like, yeah. My end goal was this can help boost my career, then I could pull aside from it. Didn't think of any backlash. And that caused a big rift in my relationship with my daughter's mom. And we had started trying to get back together. You know, we were building things before she moved. And we both kind of figured maybe the space will be best. And then that, you know, didn't help. And, you know, some things were going on. Just that didn't help. And it was like, oh, when she told me we would be best just being co-parents. And I was like, huh? And it broke me. And I realized I messed it up because I knew better first and foremost, but also that one pivotal part, that pivotal step before the marriage, because marriage itself is hard, that final step to say, hey, are you going to be that perfect person? Am I going to be that perfect person for each other?
Yeah.
You know, and some people don't want the perfect person. They want you to be as best as you can.
Yep.
And either way, it just was, you know, me messing that up and having a hard time still to this day fully forgiving myself.
Yeah, and that's hard to do when you've definitely, because I've definitely been like the shittier person in our relationship because I really want to accomplish certain things and I'm so headstrong about it. And so like he just kind of lets me do my thing, which is kind of dangerous sometimes to let somebody just frolic into the world and just be like all sorts of Natasha on people. But, you know, I think it's a good learning process, and also like to realize that your friends and your peers and all that, they fill a lot of voids that like somebody else can't. So it's okay to have like to not put that pressure on one person to be 100% of all the stuff. So good for us. We're killing engagement. Killing engagement. All right. Well, we're just about out of time. So in conclusion, Jay, where can everybody find you?
Okay. Here goes the long list of things.
Here goes the thing.
Find me on Twitter and Instagram at Mr. J Washington. That's MrJaywashington. Check out the Trusty Sidekick podcast with myself and Bobby Hill. We get you caught up on everything in the Marvel and DC live action and cinematic universes. My YouTube channel is youtube.com/J Washington 80. You can catch everything I put up there, including the first episode of A Dad Apart. I will be talking to a lot of other fathers coming up soon. I'm working on setting those dates up. You can catch me regularly on Collider Video on YouTube, doing a lot of stuff with them, and definitely part of the Movie Trivia Schmodown, various other YouTube networks, and just being an all-around cool dude.
You're just a fucking good guy.
Thank you.
And that's what I like about being able to podcast here. This network is made up of awesome comics, really good people, and it's nice to be able to have good people that are my friends on here and talk about, the fact that we all suck a little bit, and that's okay. And you can find me at NPH Comedy. You can follow the network at CPU Podcasts and Comedy Pop-Up. And keep tuning in to Future Role Model. We'll catch you next time.